Hello everypony, this is Rob Royale, and welcome back to another reading of Vinyl and Octavia University Days by DawnFade on FimFiction.net. I think these shorter openings have been going pretty well. Again, I don't have a recording system, and the new thing I'm using on iMovie is working quite well. All I have to worry about now is iMovie crashing from time to time, which can really be a pain in the butt. But anyway, link to the stories in the description if you would like to read along. If you don't have time to read along, feel free to listen here or on any of the other readings that have been done on this story. Anyway, this is chapters 7 and 8. Let's get started. Of all the places she wanted to be on Sunday night, this was not in the top 10. Stumbling half-drunk down a dark Manhattan street, leaning on shady oaks for support. This wasn't even in the top 50. "Didn't know you were such a lightweight," chuckled Shady, sliding a hoof around the DJ's neck to keep her upright. "You were bumping drinks into me, dude. Buck off," replied the grumpy drunk. The two ponies continued their awkward shuffle down the gum-encrusted sidewalk. Slowly, the dark stallion let his hoof drift along Vinyl's back until it came to rest upon her flank. Ever so softly, he began to trace little circles on her coat. "What are you doing?" The unicorn shoved him away, but stumbled and tripped without the support. He laughed and helped her up. "Come on, let's get you home." "Where are we going again?" "Back to my place, like you asked." She frowned. "I don't remember asking that." "Well, you did, dude." Shady put his hoof around her neck again and pulled her forward a few steps. "Whoa, there, easy. I don't know what you think is happening, but it ain't happening." She tried to sound as serious as possible, though the haze that clouded her mind. The stallion paused in his attempts to assist her. "Are you serious?" Yeah. "So, all those bits I blew on drinks were for nothing?" Vinyl's drunken brain felt absurdly guilty, and she placed a hoof on his shoulder, though that may have been for support as much as sympathy. "Sorry, Shades. When you said drinking buddy, I thought you meant, like, an actual buddy." The stallion slumped visibly. "You're a damn tease, Vinyl." "No, I'm not." He snorted. "Hanging off me all night, pretty much grinding on me in the dance pit, doing tequila shots off my back? Nah, you're a saint." "Did I really do all that?" "More or less." "Crap, I'm sorry. I get a little friendly after a few drinks." "Whatever. Reckon you can find your way home from here?" She looked around at the tall black buildings and featureless road. Sure, no worries." Shady shook free of her comforting hoof and started trotting away without another word. Left on her lonesome, the warmth in her veins slowly chilled in the icy night air. As pretty as Manhattan was during the day, it looked downright creepy at night. Sure, there were plenty of street lamps, but they seemed so suffocated and suppressed by the cold blackness that they provided little comfort. Sudden, crackling tendrils of panic curled around her spine. "I've changed my mind." "Shady?" Vinyl turned to look at the way her friend had gone, and only saw his tail vanishing round the street corner. "Shady!" she croaked. A night full of shouting was affecting her voice at the worst possible time. She tried to gallop after him, but only made a few steps before falling over. The world swam before her. "Stop it. I just want to get home." But her head was heavy, and it felt as though the pavement was the only thing stopping her from drooping below the world. It was not a good feeling, but she had endured worse. Granted, those times she hadn't been lying in the road. There comes a time in every drunk's life where they have to accept that they may not make it home. She took some deep breaths to try and force her mind to work. "Can't get home on my own. Need help. Some pony who can take care of me." Screwing her eyes shut in concentration, the unicorn hovered her mobile out of its pouch. "Calling Octavia." As the ringing began, she let the phone rest on the side of her head, releasing it from her magical grasp. "Oh, honestly, Vinyl, this is late even by our standards," yawned the angelic voice on the other end. "Sorry." "You okay? You sound a bit hoarse." Yeah, I'm fine. You?" What was she calling about again? "Aside from being awoken by this call, I'm quite alright." "Yeah, you are. You're always alright." Vinyl grinned, scratching her cheek against the ground. "Well, I suppose. Are you sure you're okay?" Somehow, the DJ could hear Octavia frowning in the concern. Hey, I just want to say, because I'll never say it to your face, you're pretty cool, and I reckon we should chill more together because, yeah, you're awesome. A pause. Oh, sweet Celestia, have you been drinking ever since our phone call on Friday? She ignored the words entirely. Nah, just tonight. But, like, listen to me. I'm being totally open and stuff, and I've been having these dreams, right? And they're like full of those cleft things, like the one on your cutie mark. And sometimes I'll see you in my dreams, and we'll hang out and go walking together. Vinyl, interrupted the cellist, who sounded more amused than irritated. You should get some sleep. Drunken phone calls are most unbecoming. I can't. I don't know where I am. But shush, this is really important. When I think about you... Don't you know where you are? Exclaimed Octavia. What do you mean? Are you just wandering the streets? Yeah, pretty much. It's not safe at all. Do you see anywhere familiar at all? I'll come and get you. That would be awesome. Nothing familiar, but I think the street I'm on is called Blueberry Road. Though I'm also pretty hungry, so that could just be... Hey, can you bring me some blueberries? Don, I have a map of Manhattan here somewhere. And some whipped cream? Throw in some chocolate shavings, too. Blueberry Road is adjacent to the main clubbing district. Did you go to any clubs? Vinyl snorted. Philly, please. I went to all the clubs. Of course you did. Well, I think I know roughly where you are. Just stay there until I find you, okay? Ella sounded so serious that she managed to cut through the nigh delirious fog clouding the White Pony's world. Hey, don't worry, I'm going nowhere fast. As soon as the conversation ended, Octavia shoved her phone in a small one-sided saddlebag and bolted out of her room into the hall. The lamps were bright and made her eyes hurt, but she persevered regardless. The cellist burst into the stairwell with a crash, leaping over the first set, skidding, and bypassing the second via rail slide. Her mane was a mess, her coat was ruffled, and she had forgotten her bow tie. But all those things took the back seat of her mind. A friend in need. She had read about the responsibilities of friends, and best friends forever. In this situation, she was bound by the rules of friendship to help Vinyl get home safely. It didn't matter if the unicorn had brought this on herself, or if Octavia had 2 lectures later today. Those were the rules, and this mare always followed them. This was, however, the first time she had ever needed to remember that particular set of rules. It was all well and good to know the code of conduct among advanced acquaintances, but if she didn't have any, they weren't much use. Well, not anymore. With determination in her veins, Octavia charged down the hall and through the final door in the night. It was cold, very cold, but she didn't stop running. Her teeth were chattering, so she clenched them to remain focused. The student village was on campus, hidden away in a far corner. The point was to be close enough to justify living there to get to class easier, yet far enough that students could maintain their own lifestyles without being under the scrutiny of the university's faculty. A long, winding path through an unnatural forest led her into the main court. For once, the sheer enormity of the place didn't excite her. Rather, she felt exhausted just by looking at all the ground she had to cover. Thoughts of a carriage crossed her mind, and she latched onto it hungrily. There was no way she could run all the way downtown. A hired transport was the clear solution. Not only would it save her legs, but the driver would know exactly where Blueberry Road was. It was a great disappointment, then, to see the empty ranks outside the university gates, where usually there would be a couple of carriages eager for your directions and your bits. Now there was a single wet newspaper flapping in the breeze. Running all the way downtown it is, then. She took off in a steady trot, wisely deciding to conserve energy. After all, she might need to drag a certain unicorn all the way back. There were few ponies out this late, and the ones she saw were promptly avoided. 1,000 tutor-taught, parent-approved lessons in safety came rushing back. Don't make eye contact if some pony looks unprincipled. Cross the street to avoid them if possible. Remember, it's better to look rude than to get mugged. And for the love of Celestia, Octavia, don't go into any dark alleyways. Thankfully, the club district wasn't exactly hidden away. It was entirely possible to reach it using only main roads, no alleys required. A small comfort in a big, cold city, yet she was grateful for it nonetheless. It was barely 15 minutes later and she was panting. Sure, she maintained a good exercise regime as required to keep herself healthy, but that was just a jog around campus and some stretching routines, nothing that actively increased her endurance. Slowly but surely, her hooves began to get sore from slapping against the tough and occasionally uneven pavement. Final. The pain that shot through each hoof when it struck the ground changed meaning, becoming incentive to pick up that hoof and push it forward. Each inhalation of crisp night air brought with more energy, and she narrowed her eyes in conviction. The cellist had a goal, and there was simply no time for physical limitations. Rounding a corner, Octavia spotted the very sign that eluded her. Blueberry Road. Grinning, she had forgotten all about the ache in her hooves, and started down the street with renewed enthusiasm. No wonder she wasn't certain where she was. This looks like every other street. Black silhouettes came into focus further down the road, and her heart jumped into her throat. Her comfy little dorm was a long way from here. She slowed her pace, keeping an eye on the group. It was two colts, probably high school kids who had snuck out. They didn't seem very good-natured, but it was the thing that they crowded around that made her heart speed up. A white unicorn with an electric blue mane. "Hey!" she screamed. "What do you think you're doing?" They looked up, slightly startled, which was a good sign. It meant they weren't sure who had the power in this encounter, which in turn meant that Octavia could take that power. "Get away from her before I eviscerate you!" She picked up the pace, hoping it would frighten them into making a snap decision of fleeing. They backed up, but one of them still had a bit of defiance. Or what?" he shouted, voice cracking and betraying his fear. "I know Pilates! There won't be anything left for your parents to identify!" She had never shouted so loudly and forcefully in her life, nor had she ever been so confident in a lie. The final threat was enough to tip the tables in her favor, and the two colts sprinted away as she reached Vinyl. As the cellist carefully looked over the unconscious mare, she felt her panic slowly abate. The DJ was clearly unharmed, aside from a couple of light scratches, most likely from tripping over. The two colts were probably just poking a passed-out drunk, as disgusting little ponies are wont to do. Vinyl's signature purple glasses lay beside her, and Octavia realized that, with a start, that this was the first time that she had seen her friend without them. Now, if only she was conscious. "Vinyl, wake up. Come on now, you can't sleep here," she whispered insistently, gently poking her white cheeks. "She certainly has very soft skin." Finally, a response. "Just let me die," groaned the unicorn, without even opening her eyes. "Absolutely not! I came all the way here from my dorm to get you, so you better darn well get up and be grateful!" Her eyes cracked open ever so slightly, but in the dim streetlights, Octavia wasn't certain if they were even looking at her. "Huh? Octavia?" Well, that answered that. "Yes, it's me. You called and I came. Now hurry up and move your flank!" She couldn't help but be a little annoyed at the slow reaction time. Vinyl reached out a hoof, patting the ground blindly until she found her shades. Fumbling a bit, she slid them on and raised her head slightly. "Hey." The cellist hoped her flat look would be a suitable reply. Right. I'll get up." With several curses, 3 of which Octavia had never even heard of, she hauled herself upright and stood swaying upon the sidewalk. Her mane was even more disheveled than usual, and her expression was one of hungover agony. Needless to say, the cellist snuffed a laugh. "Oh, you look ridiculous." "I think if I try to talk too much, I might puke." The earth pony took a step back. "Can you walk on your own?" she asked hopefully. "I can try, but if I fall over again, I'm going back to sleep." Pushing through the mental image of being covered in vomit, Octavia walked up beside Vinyl and put a hoof around her neck. "Come on then, let's get you out of here." They began the awkward drunk herder shuffle. Never in a million years did the dedicated student think she of all ponies would need to do it. Truly, it was humbling to see that the lives of other, slightly less reserved ponies were also susceptible to hardships, albeit self-inflicted ones. At least that's what she used to occupy her mind during the long, painful walk through the streets of Manhattan. As streets blurred together and her hooves went numb, Octavia felt her energy drain away. Now that the initial rush was over and Vinyl was safe, the very late hour was beginning to have an adverse effect on her. Or rather, the very early hour, as the lightening horizon suggested. "Oh, Celestia, I haven't stayed up all night since ever," she mumbled, now holding on to Vinyl for support as much as the other way around. "You get used to it," came the croaky reply. "I certainly hope not. At this pace, I'll never get home in time to get any sleep." Vinyl snorted. "Just crash at my place. We're almost there anyway." I... I'm not sure. Maybe I can just catch a carriage now that it's morning." "Octavia, chill. You're staying at my place tonight. Today. Whatever." "Well, if you're sure it would be okay." "It's fine. Now, come on. It's just around the corner. I think my hangover is going to get a lot worse if I don't get sleep soon." For once, the use of that vague phrase was extremely literal, a fact for which the cellist was infinitely grateful. Vinyl's flat was indeed just around the corner, and up an elevator and down a corridor. It wasn't the nicest looking building, nor was it host to the most refined of company, but the Earth Pony held her tongue, knowing that such criticism would bring absolutely no good whatsoever. Inside Vinyl's apartment, she could definitely see why the unicorn wanted to leave. It was extremely small, with everything in one room, except the bathroom, of course, which was somehow even smaller. Cardboard boxes packed tight with belongings topped most of the floor. "I don't blame you for not unpacking. I would also hate the idea that I live here for any length of time." The words slipped out before she could think, and she slapped a hoof to her lips. Luckily, the exhausted mare didn't even seem to hear. She slipped free of Octavia's supporting hoof and stumbled forward, falling onto the bed. Where should I sleep?" asked the cellist, feeling very awkward about the obvious answer. As expected, a white hoof patted the mattress lazily. "Can you move over a bit?" A twitch that almost looked like a shrug passed over the unicorn's body. She was checking out of reality. Next stop, dreamland. Octavia climbed tentatively onto the bed and tried to maneuver herself so that she didn't accidentally touch the DJ. It was hopeless. There was simply no way to avoid it. Wincing and moving very close, she lay down and held her breath as their bellies were pressed together. "This is rather nice after being out of the cold." Vinyl was fast asleep, her breathing deep and slow. Each time her chest expanded, it pushed gently against the cellist. Warmth radiated from the blue-maned mare, and Octavia caught herself before she snuggled closer. "Must stay alert. This is my first sleepover. I can't afford to make a fool of myself." But as her body realized that the action was finally over, and it was time to rest, she found her ability to regulate movements to be severely lacking. "So nice and warm." The cellist pressed her face into the white cloud, smiling at the comforting heat. It was safe there, nice and secure. Relaxing and cozy. There was no need to think. Her eyes fluttered shut, and she happily slipped into a doze. And as the pair slept, unintentionally entwined, but with complaints from neither side, the sun broke through the early clouds and lit the city with its merry glow. Being in such an unusual predicament so far outside her comfort zone, it would have been expected for a pony such as Octavia to react with stammering exclamations and embarrassed chuckles. But if the sleepy brain was one thing, it was relaxed. When she awoke in an unfamiliar-feeling bed, she simply yawned and tried to return to sleep. This pony's hours were up, though, and the longer she kept her eyes shut, the more they wanted to open. Her senses returned slowly, emerging from the deep, warm depths of sleep, hearing the sound of the busy city, tasting a few stray hairs that made her scrunch her nose in disgust, smelling sweat and spice and alcohol, touching a large heat pillow, seeing the white unicorn sleeping right next to her. Octavia would remember the moment as being akin to seeing a spider skitter across the floor, complete with the impulse to jump back and scream and so forth, but the truth was a lot less terrifying. "Oh dear," she mumbled. Vinyl's glasses were askew, revealing closed eyes for the second time in recent memory. Memory. The events of last night came rushing back, bringing the cellist completely out of her sleepy daze. Upon glancing at the unicorn with clear eyes, she couldn't help but giggle at her friend's disheveled state. Sitting up, she reached out a hoof and tentatively brushed some of the DJ's unruly blue mane out of her face. From a completely objective standpoint, Vinyl was really quite pretty. In a moment of bravery, Octavia plucked the purple shades from the end of the white pony's nose, leaving her face bare. Breathing softly, Vinyl projected an air of openness that the cellist had not been privy to before. This was her, just her, in her own home, completely unguarded, with no acts or personas, no purple-tinted shades to hide behind. Final scratch. Octavia's breath hitched at the sight. If only she could draw, if only she could capture the image forever, but part of her knew that to record such a moment would be to strip away everything that made it unique. Instead, the cellist did the next best thing, embrace it. She let the rush of emotions flow over her body and through the air around them. This was their moment, one that could never be taken away from them or replaced. A single defining experience that... "Oh, for the love of..." hissed Octavia, ripping her phone out of the pouch still strapped to her hips. "Can't I have just one moment of artistic reflection? Who is this? What do you want?"
Is that how the university is teaching you to speak to your mother?
Her face dropped and she quickly climbed over Vinyl and onto the floor. Remarkably, the DJ didn't even stir. Mother? No, Mother, I'm sorry. How are you?" Searching desperately, she scrambled about her bow tie before remembering it was back in her dorm. Being completely unclothed and messy made her feel as unprepared for a chat with her mother as possible.
Spare me the innate pleasantries, Octavia. I think we both know why I'm calling.
The voice on the other end sounded just as stern and commanding as she remembered. The cellist spared a glance for her sleeping friend, but there was no other option. The phone call would turn ugly if Vinyl woke up halfway through. I'm afraid I don't know why. Is something wrong?"
Something is indeed wrong. I spoke to a friend of mine who works at the university. He's a groundskeeper, a stout old chap.
Slipping out the door and closing it softly behind her, Octavia quickly descended the stairs. "Well, he certainly sounds very interesting, Mother, but what does that have to do with me?"
When you insisted on staying in one of those hovels, I knew I had to take a few precautions. You are still a little naive and suggestible, for all your talent. The groundskeeper was acquired and given a new purpose, to make sure you got home every night.
She shoved through the ground floor doors and glared at the first pedestrian she saw, a young school colt who immediately changed course. "You've been spying on me!" she exclaimed, scaring a mare waiting at a carriage stop.
Don't make this bigger than it is. Mares your age can often get sidetracked by silly little pursuits such as romance and friendship. Those things are merely tools that you can use to advance in the world, nothing more.
Octavia started trotting faster in the direction of the university. A whole new appreciation for what Vinyl had to deal with every time she had a class began to form. But it was not enough to distract her from her fury. "I can't believe you! So that speech about independence and standing on my own four hooves you gave me on the day I left was completely meaningless, wasn't it?"
Oh, here you are going on one of your melodramatic tantrums, and you wonder why I'm so protective. You're not as capable as you seem to think, Octavia, and the call I received from the groundskeeper proves it. You didn't make it home after your odd early morning excursion.
The cellist resisted the urge to scream. "He watches my dorm while I sleep!"
Of course not. Don't be silly. He merely checks the campus security camera footage every morning. Now explain yourself. Did you spend the night in somebody else's bed?
Almost feel the intense stare through the phone. There was a sense of sick desperation in her forced chuckle. I don't understand."
Understand perfectly well. Tell me the truth.
Yes, I did, but it's not...
Octavia! After everything I've taught you, you do something like this after only 5 weeks!
I swear I didn't. She's my friend. I was helping her.
She?
Line went dangerously silent. Heavy breathing distorted her mother's voice.
Are you saying what I think you're saying, young lady?
She was drunk and lost in the city, so I helped her get home, and she let me stay at her place, but we didn't do anything, I swear, blurted Octavia, ignoring the looks from amused bystanders.
Certain?
I'm certain.
So you're not
No, I swear. Believe me, I'm not.
I taught you better than that, at least. But still, I'm very disappointed in you. Don't risk your safety like that again, especially not for some low-life drunk.
At the old mare. She's not a lowlife, Mother. She's my friend, Octavia replied quietly, dangerously. My first friend. The satisfaction of silence was short-lived.
Bah, we'll see how long that lasts. Be a good filly and go to class. Call ended.
Octavia quickly returned her phone to her pouch to avoid stomping it into the sidewalk. Every single conversation with that insufferable pony ended like this. Constant insults and belittlement, all shred of control and independence ripped away in a matter of minutes, leaving her feeling like a ridiculous little filly. Tears threatened to spill out down her cheeks as she waved a carriage over. When she climbed aboard, the first one dripped onto the wooden floors, and she tried to rub them away. The driver turned around and peeked into the carriage. It was a small one, only meant for 2 ponies, and it had no roof. "Where to, darlin'?" he drawled. "West Manhattan University, please," she sniffed quietly. "Righto. Is everything okay?" The concern in his voice made her heart warm. Not all ponies are bad. She had to remind herself. Octavia gave him a weak smile. "I'll be all right, but thank you for asking." He nodded and began to move. They rumbled down the road to the sound of city life, shouting and chatting, laughter and anger, and as she listened, the cellist felt her own sadness trickle away. There were so many other ponies around her, all with their own problems and worries, and all of them probably more serious than an argument with her mother. It was a rush of perspective, and it was exactly what she needed. Taking a deep breath, she dabbed at her eyes and tried to fix her mane. She would need a shower and a proper grooming session when she got home. But for now, it was acceptable. With the start, Octavia realized she didn't have any bits on her. "Sir, I'm sorry, but I forgot to bring any money," she said guiltily. The tiny carriage didn't pause for a second. "Then you're lucky I'm a sucker for crime mares. No charge." Now that surprised her. There was being a kind and chivalrous pony, and then there was purposely wasting time that could be used making money. "No, I can't let you do that. Stop, I'll walk the rest of the way." "Nope. You're gonna enjoy the free ride." "Are you sure? You could be taking somebody else right now." "Missy, if my carriage gets you away from the source of your tears faster, it'll be worth it." His dark brown coat glistened with sweat. "Thank you." It was all she could say. Such random generosity had been absent from her life until that moment. He had nothing to gain from helping her. He wasn't trying to buy, manipulate, or otherwise benefit from it. He was simply acting out of the goodness in his heart. Now that was something her mother had never taught her about. Pain. Glorious, horrible pain. Beams of light racked against her skull via her eyes, pounding and throbbing to the beat of consequence. "Never again," croaked the DJ. She lay there, wrapped in a cocoon of misery, wishing for anything to end her suffering. As usual, the deities that were supposed to help hungover ponies were probably sleeping off their own intoxication, and thus she had no time to ease her pain. Part of her wanted to sit up and try to force her body to get over it through sheer willpower, but the feeling in her throat meant that would be a very short-lived attempt. It seems as though, once again, the only solution was to suffer. In the midst of her sluggish mind, Vinyl wondered why she had never looked into finding a spell that got rid of, or prevented entirely, hangovers. The answer was as clear as it was frustrating. When she wasn't hungover, she didn't care. And so she groaned and moaned and swore at the sun, rolling back and forth while trying to push herself deeper into the bed. An eternity later, she raised her head. A few more eternities later, she sat up completely, marveling at the rotary capacity of her room. Eventually, she slid from the bed and dropped to the ground. The first thing that she looked for was her glasses. They were tinted for a reason. After all, when she put them on, the light was dulled and her headache eased slightly. The shower was next, and she let the warm water wash away all the sweat and dirt that had somehow formed in her sleep. Even the purple shades got a nice clean, and so when she stepped out and dried herself, they sparkled with the devilish flare that she loved. Slowly, the world stopped being horrible, and a degree of normalcy returned. Vinyl heard a faint buzzing sound, and cast her eyes around for the offending mobile. It was amongst the sheets, the cushioning muffling its message tone.
3 new messages.
Being popular was hard work.
Octavia. Sorry for leaving. My mother called and I didn't want to wake you up. Wake up, sleepyhead. You're going to miss your second lecture if you don't hurry.
Oh, horse feathers! Lectures, university, those things still existed despite her bad start to the day. Wait, she wasn't going to go to them anyway. She had something else to do. Wait, Octavia had been here? Too much stuff. Shut up, brain! The DJ attempted to organize her thoughts. Where was she last night? Shady. She went drinking with Shady. Vinyl remembered arriving at the bar, laughing and dancing with a drink floating before her and the stallion's hoof around her waist, but that was it. After that, there were just blurry images and sensations punctured with an oddly serene voice. Come on then, let's get you out of here. She flicked through her phone, looked for the call history. As she suspected, a single call had been made at about 3 in the morning, to Octavia. Oh, Celestia, please tell me I didn't do anything stupid, she whispered. Some part of Vinyl remembered the text she had inspected moments ago. The cellist didn't seem angry. In fact, there was a smiley face in the second message. What did that mean? Had something good happened? Like what? Her mind prompted. Nothing. She moved on, latching onto the next hazy memory. The lectures, the plan, everything was still salvageable. If she moved quickly, it was still mid-morning, so Octavia would be in her music theory lecture. That left about half an hour for Vinyl to get all her belongings to campus and into her new room. This was going to be close. Checking her phone was becoming something of a nervous habit. It didn't help that the lecturer, a pudgy mare with too much makeup on, seemed to be under the weather, accenting her each sentence with a wet, hacking cough. For once, the cellist regretted sitting in front of the class. Not only was she in the germ zone, but it made indulging her new habit feel that much more shameful. Surely, Octavia thought that she must be considered quite a rude student, pulling her phone out every few seconds. Yes, there are other students did too, but they were all sitting in the back of the room, far out of the bespectacled mare's sight. All she wanted was to see the little flash of light and those big words telling her that... The Earth Pony snatched her phone up almost violently.
Vinyl. Hey, I'm awake. Sorry if I did anything dumb last night. I can't remember much.
And with one text, the cellist's worries were assuaged.
Finally! You're going to miss half of your lecture now. And don't worry, you are no different than usually while intoxicated. Message sent.
Finally, now I can focus on taking notes. Picking up her pen between her teeth, she took a moment to pursue the mind-numbing paragraph-length dot points that were arrayed on the projector screen. This week, they were apparently studying one of the greatest yet underappreciated composers in history. Well, at least until they died. Octavia found that a bit sad, that their worth wasn't realized until it was gone forever, but also inspiring, that even if her own music wasn't popular or liked during her time, there was still hope that some future classical music enthusiast would see her merit. As engaging as she found the idea, it was still incredibly boring to write about. Most of it she had known for years, and the notes she jotted down would never be read because of that. But she wrote them anyway, if only to distract her from other things. An idle mind can be quite a nuisance sometimes. Another glance at her phone revealed that the lecture was drawing to a close anyway, so she started packing away her things in advance. As expected, the last couple of slides were just reiterating information she knew by heart. Yes, his first attempt at professional composing came out in that year, obviously. Yes, he was publicly denounced by the musical associations of those times. Every pony knew that. The only thing Octavia didn't know about this class was why it seemed to think that she was a little filly picking up a bow for the first time. Honestly, if a pony made it to this class at all, it would be assumed that they know a little bit about musical theory and which prominent figures influenced the modern system. Sighing with relief, Octavia slid out of her chair and took her leave as the lecturer coughed her way through a side door. Freedom! The smile that had been gracing her lips all day returned in full force. It had been a rather emotional few hours after that horrid call from her ghastly mother, and though the kindness of the carriage driver did much to ease her mind, there were always going to be thoughts and worries rattling around the back of her head like loose screws. Thankfully, it was only a short trip to her dorm. They were like mini apartment buildings, 2 stories with 6 rooms on each, and 2 ponies to each room. In total, there could be a maximum of 24 students to each building, though there were only 17 or so in hers currently. Well, that was going to change soon. A roommate was going to be moving in any day now, for better or worse. As she climbed the stairs, Octavia heard hushed voices in the hallway above. Before she could investigate, a light blue Pegasus dropped down in front of her, blocking the way up. "Hello!" she said cheerfully. Hello there." The cellist felt rather awkward for a moment, but then her demure brightened. "Oh, are you my new roommate?" "Nope, I've been here for ages." Her ice blue eyes sparkled with untempered happiness. "I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Do you think I could go past? It's been a long day." The gray mare made to step around the other pony, but she was quickly blocked by a sidestep. Wait, I have to ask you something first. Raising a hoof to motion for her to go ahead, Octavia's ears twitched at the sound of something heavily thudding on her floor. The absolute last thing she felt like doing was helping this mare with homework, but she forced herself to be patient. How do you spell stalling? It's been bugging me all day. Stalling. Perhaps you should invest in a dictionary, she answered, trying to step to the right of the blonde-maned Pegasus, who darted in front of her once again. Thanks so much. What about delaying? That smile was starting to get infuriating. Further thuds echoed from above, plucking at her curiosity cords. Delaying. If you would excuse me, and impending? Impeding. I really must. And what about hindering? I don't mean to be rude, but these are questions that you could easily direct towards a book, which doesn't need sleep. Let me pass, she ordered, pushing forward irritably. With two flaps, the mare fluttered out of the way and let Octavia storm up the last steps. Finally, she trod down the hallway and pushed her door open, ignoring calls from behind asking her to stop. A stack of cardboard boxes and a pile of technical equipment, a computer sitting amongst a tangle of wires on the second desk, a bookstrap mixing table set up in the center of the room, a unicorn peeking sheepishly at her from the side of a half-sealed cardboard box. Hey, roomie. And that was chapters 7 and 8 of Final and Octavia University Days by DawnFade on fanfiction.net. Leave a comment below or go to DawnFade's page and leave him a like/comment there and tell him what a fantastic job he's doing. Sorry this one took so long. There's a little bit of problem I was having with iMovie, but hopefully I'll get more videos up in the future. I'm already starting work on the next chapters. Well, I hope you all enjoyed, and that's about it. Alright, see you next time. Stay brony, everybody.